and Steve, of course, stopped, switched the engine off on his 1963 Ford Fairlane, and we sat there talking while the boat came through. It took some time, and after a while, the seagoing tug pushed through away from the bridge and headed north. The bridge came down, the gates came up, and the traffic light turned from red to green. Steve reached over and turned the key on his car. The starter turned, but the car didn't start. He sat up a little bit in his seat, pumped the gas pedal a couple of times, hit the key again. The starter turned, but the car didn't start. Now Steve's leaning over the steering wheel. He pumps the gas pedal about 5 times, pushes it to the floor, hits the key again. The starter turns, but the car doesn't start. Only now we can smell gas. Steve had flooded his car. Allow me to explain to those of you who weren't driving in 1982 or before then. Back in the good old days, a car had a carburetor that dispensed the fuel, mixed it with the air as it went into the intake manifold, to start the car. Once in a while, if you didn't hold your mouth right, if you hadn't been to the garage in a while, the car was prone to flooding. The solution to the flooding is to let the heat from the engine evaporate some of the gasoline, move it away, let a little bit of air in there, so you've got the right mixture of fuel and air, so when the spark plug fires, boom, you've got combustion. We just have to wait. So we're sitting there in the car. Steve's a little embarrassed. Cars are coming by on our left side, and they're all slowing down to look at why we aren't moving. All of a sudden, about 3 or 4 cars back, this guy starts blowing his horn. Steve slouches down a little bit further in the seat, but he's only 18 years old, and he can't take it for so long. And all of a sudden, his face turns as red as his hair. He jumps out of the car, storms back there, knocks on the guy's window, and says, "Look, my car's flooded, and it's going to take a few minutes before it will start. But I'll tell you what I'll do. You go up there and try to start my car. I'll stay back here and blow your horn for you. How about that?" What Steve was trying to tell the man was, there's nothing we can do but wait. What you're doing is not helping start my car. So shut up. If he had been a little older, a little wiser, a little more mature, he may have said, "Sir, I'm not an automobile engineer, but I'm pretty sure your horn is not connected to my car and is not going to start it. So shut up." He may have said, "I'm not a psychiatrist, but it seems to me you're just showing your weaknesses as a human being and not being able to take any disappointment. And you're wanting to transfer all your disappointment to everybody around you. So shut up." He may have said, "As a parent, sir, you may want to be rethinking this whole blowing the horn thing, lest you teach your children right behind you that when they don't get what they want, they begin to blow their own horn, and you end up reaping what you sow. So shut up." Basically, he was telling the guy to shut up. Now, I predict if you were to tell that story at one of the meetings that you attend to that antagonist, that complainer, they'll shut up. And they're going to shut down, and you'll never get another thing out of them, whether constructive or destructive. They'll just be warming a chair in your meeting and wasting space and breathing the air that everybody else needs to breathe. You'll make an enemy, and it's just not going to be a good thing in the long run. Is there another way to do this? Is there another way to tell that person who's the antagonist that they're not doing things correctly, that they need to change their behavior? When Chris Roberts joined Toastmasters, in one of his first speeches, he said, I'll never forget this, I wrote it down because it just touched me. He said, "A lot of people say things the way they want to say them, but it may not be the most effective way to get their message across." So what I'd like to do, rewind this story and give another ending to the story. We'll go back to the point where the horn's going to blow. we're sitting there in the car waiting for the car to clear and talking to Steve, waiting to be able to start the engine again, when all of a sudden this guy starts blowing his horn. You know, I got to thinking about that guy that was blowing the horn. What an opportunity he may have missed instead of just sitting back there blowing his horn. Wasn't going to help any. Wasn't going to make the cars move any faster. He could have rewritten the ending to his story and made things better. He could have just said, "You kids stay in the car with your mother. As a matter of fact, tell your mother what kind of sea creatures you're going to see when we get to the beach. And I'll go up here and see if this guy needs any help." And then he may have walked up to Steve's car, knocked on his window and said, "Just wondered if I could be of any assistance to you." And then Steve may have said, "Well, I'm afraid I've flooded my car and there's not much I can do but wait." At that point, that fella could have said, "Feel, felt, and found." Could have said, "Well, I know how you feel. I felt the same way. Why, just last week I was up at Dorton Arena in Raleigh seeing the Rolling Stones in concert. What a great day it was. We had a great concert, but as we were leaving, my car stalled and flooded right at the exit, blocking everybody behind me. It was positioned in such a way that nobody could get it. So there we were. Fortunately, everybody was in a great mood because they'd just seen a great concert, and all my friends who were following me in their cars all got out, and we were just standing around waiting. Had to open the hood, take the lid off the breather, let a little bit of air get in there to evaporate the gasoline. All of a sudden, the state trooper comes up, one of those little guys with the Smokey the Bear hat. He had those white gloves on they use when they're directing traffic, and he says, "I want this car out of here." My friends were in such a great mood. One of them got up on the tailgate of my station wagon and led everybody in a rendition of "You Can't Always Get What You Want." They were laughing, joking. Everybody was having a good time except the state trooper, but eventually he came around and joined in the singing. If the guy who had been blowing the horn instead of blowing his horn had walked up to my friend Steve and told some ridiculous story like this, it would have taken the same amount of time. Nobody would have gotten there any quicker or any less, or stayed any longer. The people around him wouldn't have had to listen to a horn blowing. And the fellow may have written a better ending and entertained people in the process. We need to remember that when we're telling stories, we're entertaining people, we're passing the time, and we're teaching lessons along the way. If there's one thing I've learned about adding an ending to a story is you can do it well and you can do it even better. And we need to look for those better endings. When faced with a complainer that's bringing a group down, we have a tendency to do one of two things. We can fight or flight. Confronting the antagonist, confronting that complainer, is the fight piece. Usually doesn't end very well. But I thought about flight. And I thought about flight not in a sense of fleeing from the controversy, but taking off and rising above the controversy. Getting up above it to a new level where we don't have to fight. And it occurred to me that the words fight and flight, the only difference is the L in flight. If we love one another, if we care for one another, and express that love even to those who are confronting us, we may write a better story. That story may have a better ending for everyone involved. I wish Bruce Reagan was here today because one of his favorite poems, "The Road Not Taken" by Robert Frost, says, "Two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." As Toastmasters and as human beings, we have a choice every day of how we want to end a story. how we want to write a better story for our lives and those around us. Let's strive every day to write and end the best story we can for our lives and for the people around us. And that, my friends, will make all the difference. Mr. Toastmaster.